Well, it is a nice brisk Monday evening. It is, I don't have my watch on, probably about 4:45, maybe 4:30, based on the sun. And I'm at home, which is wild. Ask anybody. It's weird for me to be home this early on a work day. But I have somewhat made a New Year's resolution, and that resolution is that I would like to try and get home. I'm kicking the ball for toner, that's what that is, at a decent time, to try harder to get home at a decent time throughout the week, because I'm just burning myself out with these long days of working. And I've decided after 15 years of doing it that I don't know that that's what's made the difference in the success of my business. Now, granted, getting the job done when I've committed that I'm going to for customers is really important, so I'm sure there's still going to be late nights, long days to come. But I also think that I've been overly committed, if that makes sense. When it wasn't necessarily necessary, if that makes sense. So I'm home, and part of the reason why I wanted to try and get home at a decent time is because I've got some projects that I'd like to work on. Not only personal projects, let me get you set down here for a second, but yard projects, house projects, stuff like that. There's just things that I'm missing out on, things I could be helping with here, that I want to be able to do. So I'm going to show you what some of those upcoming projects are, but first I've got to move the Landcruiser around closer to my tools so that we can check those out. The old girl just doesn't like the cold weather. It takes her a while to get warmed up. Can't say I blame her. All right, we're pulled around closer here to the shop and where I've got access to the tools. Of course, Toner wants to follow with her ball. So some of the projects that I want to do are located right in here, and I'll give you a little bit of a sneak peek. Sitting right there, not the rifle case, but the winch. Pretty cool, huh? Growing up, there was only one vehicle that we had that had a winch, and that was an old 56 Willys pickup truck, and it had a PTO on it, and one of the gears was slipping or something like that. Never really had a winch. And I think part of that was just that my dad didn't feel the need to, because self-recoveries could be done in a lot of different ways. But I also think it's because of the size, the cost, the weight, everything that was involved with winches back in the day. And winches have come a long way. I've had one on Sammy for a few years, just the cheapest ATV winch I could find. And it's been fantastic. The Badlands winch has been fantastic. They're not a sponsor of mine. They can be if they'd like. I've seen a really cool small winch on Fabrats that apparently is brand new to Badlands, and I would love to stick that on my Samurai. So they're definitely welcome to be a sponsor, but they are not. But they make winches so much more accessible and usable. And on my Samurai, I've only used it maybe 2-3 times There's the video of me trying to get up a really snowy hill a few years ago for actual off-roading, but I've used it more for yard work than I have for off-roading. It's been super handy for stretching fences and stuff like that around the yard. However, I think on the Landcruiser would be a different story. That winch has 80 feet of rope on it, and the Landcruiser is just not quite as capable as the Samurai is, and so I see more scenarios where I might need to self-recover in the Landcruiser than I might on the Samurai. And so that's kind of where that decision came from, was I think an opportunity to have that winch where I'm out quite a bit on my own, just as a self-recovery tool. So that's something that's going to come. I've got a winch plate and everything. My plan is to relocate the high lift jack. It should fit right in there. I've kind of done some preliminary measuring and checking and stuff. I'm going to have to do some cutting and drilling probably, but that project is going to come. We're going to slap a winch on this sucker. But tonight, what I want to work on is a little bit more boring, and that's that right there. That's the turn signal and the high beam, low beam switch, which I'm having a bunch of issues with, and it's not a lot of fun when you're driving home in the dark. You know there's deer on the road, and you go to flip from high beams to low beams and your lights go out completely, and you struggle to get them back on. I also feel like I've caused a fair amount of confusion going from high beams to low beams and trying to get it in the sweet spot, and I'm flashing the person that's coming along. Not the best of scenarios. So I'm going to try and pull this column apart and see if I can figure out what the issue is there, and I'm assuming it's just contacts. I can reorder a part, but it almost looks like I've got to pull the whole steering wheel, which I'm not too excited to do. So I'm hoping if I can just get in this, do some looking and maybe clean up some contacts, maybe do some adjusting or tightening or something like that, that I can get that figured out so that that's in better shape. So we'll see what I can figure out on that. Alright, so it looks like I've just got some Phillips screws in here. Oh. That should come out, and then I can get this plastic cover off, maybe see what I'm working with. Getting hung up on here. There we go. Okay, got that guy off. Okay, just kind of like I figured. Looks like we've just got some contacts right here. If you can see that, that little lever there moves and touches these contacts as it goes. So I think I should be able to just kind of clean those guys up. Looks like points inside of a distributor. I think I ought to be able to just kind of clean those up and be in good shape. So I think what I'm going to do is see if I can go find a little fine grit sandpaper. And I'll probably work those points. I'll probably kind of work those points, clean those up, and then I might look at the way that bottom one almost looks a little bent. So I might look at those and see if I've got to kind of reshape those, reform those somehow, so that they spring and make better contact with them. Let's see what I got here. Everything I'm finding's pretty, oh, there we go. There you go, that'll work. I was gonna say everything I'm finding looks pretty coarse, but I think this ought to work okay. So this is gonna be kind of hard to show you without getting in the way. But I think basically what I'm going to do is kind of take a strip like that. That's just kind of a thin strip. And I'm going to stick it in there. Swap it so that it's pinching down on it. And then pull it out. And just kind of swap back and forth. And see if that works that surface a little bit. In fact, I'm going to fold this in half so I'm doing both sides at the same time. Work smarter, not harder, right? Well, I think we got her. I've been watching I can barely see it out here on the door of my shop coming on. But I'll set you up and show you what I'm talking about. So right now we're sitting on low beams here. And I'll flip it back and forth. High beams, low beams. High beams, low beams. Left signal. Right signal. Comes on high. Comes on low. Beauty. That wasn't too bad. That was actually quite a bit easier than I thought it was going to be. Make sure it's still working now. High beams, low beams. Beauty. Well, I'm just as pleased as can be on that sucker. That means I can move on to the next project. All right, it's a new day and it's winch day, I think.